welcome to the Healthcare Education Project / 1199 workshop. Give yourselves a round of applause for even coming in this hot room, right? We appreciate you. We understand that it's warm in here. Hopefully the fans is taking care of that. We would like to go ahead and get started. Right now we're going to have one of our senators give you a welcome.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. It is hot. It's cramped. It's tight. It's a little uncomfortable. But let's be honest. Things are hot and tight and uncomfortable in our country right now.
Yes, come on.
Things are a little uncomfortable right now. And so I'm going to be quick because I got to bounce around to different workshops. But in the midst of this being a very trying time, what we do in this moment matters very much. And I liken this to being in a church basement where we don't got any AC and it's tight. But the world has changed from church basements. This is where we organize. This is where we strategize. And this is how we figure out how to move our folks forward. So I want to thank the Health Education Project. I want to thank London House. I want to thank all of our amazing panelists for putting this together. Our country, our people, our communities, they need us in this moment. So let's figure out how to make it happen. Thank you very much.
All right. So I had to do that really quick, right? So we had to bounce around. So again, I want to thank you for coming to the Healthcare Education Project / 1199 / London House workshop. I wanted to make sure I corrected that. So right now, my name is Ronika Burns. I'm the healthcare advocate for the Healthcare Education Project in Rochester, New York, as well as the 9 surrounding counties. And we, as Healthcare Education Project, we know the importance of collaboration and working together. That is a part of our initiative. That is a part of the work that we do to make sure that everyone's voices are heard when it comes under the healthcare spectrum. So as we're doing this work, we know that we need to come along with the important people that is the grassroots, in the community, workers, right? And also our clergy, because we work very heavily with our clergy as well. So we know when we come together the impact and the decisions and things of the power that we have of working together. So this panel was intentional, right? We wanted to make sure you understand that everyone here is working in the community, doing grassroots work, speaking of advocating, not only for healthcare, but also for food insecurities, as well as making sure people's voices are heard. So we're gonna go ahead and get started, and I'm gonna introduce our healthcare advocate lead. Her name is Marcelle Denali, and she is from New York City. I don't even want to shout out the borough because y'all be acting a fool when we shout out the borough. Where you from? Brooklyn. Nah, she's from Queens. See, that's why I want to start that, because I knew that was going to do that, right? But she's from Queens, and she is one of our healthcare advocates who have been advocating for Medicaid for a very long time, as well as healthcare throughout New York State. So we appreciate her taking this time to get to know our panel and really continue this advocacy work, but more important, know the collaboration and community building impact that we can make. So thank you again, and we appreciate you.
Let's put our hands together for Ronika. Hello. As Ronika said, I am Marcelle Denal. I am the downstate lead for the Healthcare Education Project. Welcome once again. Our theme today is, as she mentioned, step up or lose out, right? Building communities. And it is, I stand here before you unapologetically direct, team up or lose out. Building coalitions can save public services. So with that title isn't a suggestion, it is a strategic imperative. We are at an undeniable inflection point in our communities. The resources supporting our communities, from healthcare access and mental health treatment to housing to support and youth development are under immense pressure. Wouldn't you agree? No single organization, no matter how dedicated or effective, can solve these systemic crises alone. Our success and the well-being of the people we serve in our communities depends on our ability to coalesce. And with that, I would like to take this time to introduce the panelists that we have with us today. Please welcome Kalia Moore, the CEO of Drive Change. Under Kalia's leadership, Drive Change is disrupting the cycle of youth incarceration and poverty. We can applaud her. Our next panelist is a visionary leader in youth empowerment and community development. Please join me in welcoming Sheila Duke, CEO of Roads to Success. And our next panelist brings an essential on-the-ground perspective regarding the intersection of community health and social justice in the Rochester area. Please welcome Beatrice LeBron, the Executive Director of the Father Tracy Advocacy House. Our next panelist has led coalition of community groups, labor unions, and professional associations since 1995, all fighting for fundamental reform leading to universal health care. Please join me in welcoming Mark Haney, the Director of Metro New York Healthcare for All. And our next panelist brings a wealth of experience in forging the necessary alliances between government, health systems, and communities to ensure equitable healthcare access. Please welcome Erin Drinkwater, the Chief Government Relations and Strategic Partnerships Officer at Metro Health. Metro Plus. And last but not least, our next panelist brings an extraordinary over 3 decades of leadership experience across the government and human services sectors, addressing some of our society's most complex challenges. Please welcome Mitchell Netborn, the President and CEO of Samaritan Daytop Village. Let's put our hands together for our So my first question today is for all of the panelists, and I'm going to start from my right, going towards Mark. How are federal cuts affecting your organizations and the services you provide? Mitchell, you want to kick us off?
Sure. Thanks all for coming. In the interest of time, I'll just jump right in. Tremendously. I refer to it as a tsunami is coming. This time it's a bit the calm before the storm. The cuts haven't hit yet, but we know there's this record-breaking tsunami, and we just don't know when it's going to come. So we spend a lot of time doing contingency planning for that. It puts tremendous stress on our staff because, they're wondering, are we going to have a job? Just that. Well, I don't want them looking for other jobs. we're a big, strong agency, but I can't guarantee, that, we can replace money just as the state says they can't replace the $13.5 billion, $1 billion they're losing. Nobody can. And the clients, they have the same, feeling too. Am I going to get services? We shelter about 5,000 people a night, 2,000 kids. Am I going to have a home tomorrow? Is that going to be cut? So that adds stress, and many of them have underlying mental health, substance use issues. It exacerbates all that. So it's incredibly stressful, and fear what is coming down the road. So the answer is a resounding, yes, huge impact already.
I appreciate the question. So Metro Plus, we are a health insurance plan owned by Health and Hospitals, the municipal hospital system in New York City. And we cover about 700,000 lives, and predominantly those are individuals who are in receipt of Medicaid and or plans on the marketplace through the ACA. The cuts and changes to both Medicaid and the Essential Plan are going to have devastating impacts across the state, not just for individuals who are enrolled in these products, but for the entire healthcare spectrum. When hospitals continue to have uncompensated care costs, we see rural hospitals closing. That's going to create negative impacts, not just for individuals who have the ACA insurance plans or Medicaid, but also folks who have commercial plans through work. And so there's very big impacts. But what I also want to say is, we live in a society where our public benefits, welfare, Medicaid, Medicare, Social Security, disability. These are benefits that have been underfunded for decades. Yep. And the problems that we are seeing now will only exacerbate the systemic inequities that we see across our city and across our state. And so I look forward to discussing this today. At MetroPlus, we were fighting very hard against HR 1. We knew the impacts of the work requirements, the changes to SNAP. There's just so much overlapping impacts that are detrimental in this moment, but truly for decades to come.
Everybody's like passing the mic. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, Sheila Duke, proud CEO of Roads to Success. We're a youth service nonprofit serving over 8,000 young people in the Brooklyn, Bronx, and Manhattan. And we have seen cuts in a number of ways, not only internally as an organization through the federal cuts, through our WIOA money through the federal government, which impacts how we do workforce development. But we see it with our staff. Many of our staff rely on benefits. Many of our families rely on benefits. And so we see the cuts not only impacting the organization, but the people that we serve, as well as the people that we employ. And I think this is a very timely conversation in terms of boots on the ground and the things that we can do as we form coalitions and advocate for policies and things and hold our elected officials accountable so that when they're at the tables, they can put legislation that can kind of reverse all the things that are happening right now.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kalila Moon, Executive Director of Drive Change. And I have to say this, so Drive Change is an organization that we're at the intersection of reentry, hospitality, and we work with justice-involved young adults 18 to 25, and we provide culinary training for those young people, and we help them get jobs in the hospitality space. But we also are tackling food insecurity by providing fresh meals and groceries to the Bed-Stuy community, along with we have a social enterprise, and we're creating jobs within the organization. And so when I think about how these cuts impact our organization on various different levels. So when our young people don't have health care, when our young people don't have the ability, they're trying to figure out where their food is coming from. It's hard for them to stay focused at work, right? At Drive Change, one of the things that we do is that we provide something called family meal. If anybody who ever worked in food service before, right before your shift or after the shift is something called family meal. We ensure that our fellows have the one thing that they're not thinking about is a meal to eat. So they're going to be eating with us. Also our community, right? We're seeing more and more people that we're having to feed. We're feeding over 300 families every other week. We're providing grocery, prepared meals to the Marcy community. And so with these cuts are very much impacting our organization. And if you're a small nonprofit and you're wanting to go after federal dollars, this year was not the case. Right? So not only is it impacting small organizations, it's also impacting organizations that are led by leaders of color. So I think that it's important for us to name that and name what these cuts are often doing to our organizations.
Thank you for that. Oh, I'm trying to get my mic. Can I use your mic?
Mic check. Look, testing. Go.
Yeah, this one's not on.
Here we go. Test. Mic check.
Oh, wait. Oh, it's on now. So the Father Tracy Advocacy Center, we're actually a really small grassroots on North Clinton Avenue up there, which is an open drug market. Father Tracy himself, who was the priest at St. Michael's Church, was his historically large Latino population. And my building actually says Little San Juan, because Rochester, unlike New York, is diverse too, but we're concentrated by zip code with that diversity. So 14605 has the largest population of Latinos, and that's where we're at. But we do so much, one, through collaboration, right? So we do wound care, we have 3 medical providers that are on site. I pride myself on being low barrier. I don't need ID if you need a service. You can just walk in. And, you know, I've been at the center for 2.5 years, and that was the mindset and the culture I wanted to build specifically in that neighborhood, that we serve those who are opiate addicted, who are on the streets. We go out, we do outreach in the encampment. We're people-centered. So you're never going to walk in and we're going to tell you, you need to go rehab. That's not our place. What we will do is feed you, let you take a shower, give you a change of clothes. And I will tell you that in this last just 2 months alone, we typically serve about 200 homeless individuals on a daily basis that walk through the doors. They're coming for breakfast, they're coming for lunch, they're coming to pick up medication, because if you're Hep C positive and you have to have treatment, you don't have a place to store your meds. You can store them with us. We store their clothes, right? So I make our little space, and we do a lot with that little space. We're now seeing about 800 a day. I have 7 staff members, and we cannot keep up with capacity. So I did go back to the state and say, hey, I need a little bit more funding, but also I have no interest in veering from my target population, which is those who often get the least support. And we have an employment program, so I hire people. They can still be actively using and living on the street, but are employed by us. And so that program's been very successful. We're going into our 3rd year. We've been able to expand to other nonprofits, right? Because that's the key. I don't want the center to do all things for everyone. What I want to do is all things for the population I serve, and be a gap filler and a crisis support for them, and teach other nonprofits how to do this work in the same way, or expand opportunities for them. And so we're going to be opening up a hub to do just that in December, to start showing nonprofits who are already historically have been longer than us existing, but how to meet the occasion and the need right now. And we have to do it collaboratively, and figure out ways how to create new partnerships. I'll tell you, Sharice is in the building right here. She has a small grassroots. And there's oftentimes I'm calling her, we're out of capacity. Do you have capacity to serve this family? But that is happening, especially when SNAP got shut off. Our food, it was almost instant in a SNAP, right? Where we serve breakfast every day. It's open to anybody. We do not require anything to come in and eat breakfast. So even if you're a construction worker working in the neighborhood and you're hungry, come on in, we'll feed you. But our breakfast is going in 10 minutes. Wow. Our lunch is gone in 15. And unfortunately, who that impacts is the people that we are there to serve, which is people who are on the street who couldn't make it. It took them a little bit. They had to walk or catch a bus. They're losing out. And so we've had to rise up for the demand, but the demand is going to require other nonprofits to also come into this conversation and figure out how do we create new partnerships and support one another through this crisis.
Marcel, can you remind me of the question again?
Of course. How are federal cuts affecting your organization and the services you provide?
Thank you.
You're welcome.
My organization, Metro New York Healthcare for All, is a regional coalition, downstate region of community groups and labor unions. We've been doing health advocacy work together for over 30 years. Particularly our specialty, if you will, has been federal healthcare issues. So this is not new for us. We've lived through this movie before. It's much more intense this time around. I cut my teeth, and the organization got founded in the early to mid 90s when the Clinton Healthcare Reform Initiative was on the table. And unfortunately that didn't succeed, and in the wake of that, there was a midterm election when the so-called quote-unquote Gingrich revolution happened. And all of a sudden, we had to pivot from a proactive stance to a defensive stance, where we were defending Medicare and Medicaid. And in the context of wanting to be able to, wait for it, give tax cuts to corporations and billionaires. So that was the first round. The second bite at that apple was in 2009 and subsequently, when the legislative effort when the Obama administration came in was successful, and it resulted in what we now know today as the Affordable Care Act, which, when you combine its Medicaid expansion with its ACA program, 44 million people got health care through the Affordable Care Act. You'll hear the Republicans talking now about how it's a failure. It's a huge success. We never thought when that law got passed that we were going to cover that many people, but we did. A lot of on-the-ground work getting people to learn about it, get them enrolled, keep them enrolled, and the ACA, the way it functions and structures, it varies from state to state. We are so lucky to be living in New York.
Yes.
I can't tell you when I talk to other advocates from across the country, we have done a smashing success in implementing the Affordable Care Act here in New York. Now, is it a perfect law? Are we all the way there to universal health care? No, but we've taken a long step in that direction. So the next step was getting that law through, and then there was a reaction to that in the midterm elections of 2010. And what happened next was, wait for it, we're going to cut entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, SNAP, etc., in order to give tax cuts for billionaires and large corporations. And so now we're at it again. So, you know, this is the same old thing. One of the things that we've done since the second time around, there was a big national campaign that came together called Healthcare for America Now. SEIU was one of the founding organizations of it, and it sort of took a whole new approach to legislative advocacy, and that is that instead of concentrating the effort inside the DC Beltway, it was out in the states. Because HCAN's philosophy was, if you want to make federal legislative change happen, you have to go out into the congressional districts and do the grassroots organizing there. You still have a small DC-based operation that's working the Hill, but what's happening, you stand or fall based on what's happening. So here in New York, we built the HCAN network, which has organizing entities that vary as time goes on, depending on who's in power in Congress and who the different members of Congress are. Some of them oftentimes need shoring up, whether they're Republicans or Democrats. Some of the times we have to hold them accountable. But we build local coalitions in those districts to do the work of engaging the local member of Congress, engaging the local community members and organizations in those districts, engaging the local media so that everyday people understand the issues. So we do that, and then when it comes around election season, we do what we call a Vote for Healthcare project, where we go out and we make sure that voters understand how healthcare is on the ballot in that particular cycle, what are the issues at play, what are the candidates' records and positions, so that all in a very nonpartisan way, so that when voters go into the voting booth, they can make an informed decision about how they want to vote in that thing. And so right now, the first year, we're in the issue advocacy section of it, and starting, next year, at some point, we will pivot to this Vote for Healthcare project. There are some the way our networks work, we're both C3 and C4 organizations. So C4 organization, you can do direct electoral activity. So those folks do that kind of activity, and those of us who are C3s do the voter education and mobilization and turnout work. So that's a little bit of kind of, so in terms of what we're doing now, we're responding, ramping it up. It's a playbook we've used before. It's much more intense this time, so we have to be much more intense too. But that's how HR 1, the One Big Ugly Bill, has affected the work we're doing across New York.
Thank you, Mark. Thank you, panelists. Thank each and every one of you for that response. So my next question is for Sheila, Kalia, and Mitchell in that order. How are you collaborating and partnering with other organizations to fight these cuts and provide services?
Sheila.
Sheila, yes. How are you collaborating and partnering with other organizations to fight these cuts and provide services?
Thank you for the question. I think now more than ever, we are now getting the power back in our voice, right? We are able to make statements and elevate certain things as an organization. But at Roads to Success, collaboration is everything. Really, we are only as strong as our community. And so we collaborate with a lot of different organizations, fellow nonprofits. I sit on coalitions. I'm a part of organizations that foster the collaboration, right? Because many hands make light work. And right now, in a time that we are having to stand up for our children, having to stand up for the elderly, having to stand up for our young people, it takes all of us to do that. And so at Roads to Success, we are firm that we need people around the table. We need, in every room, we have to be saying the things, right? And if I'm not there, I'm expecting you to be there and saying the things for me. And so I sit on the Human Service Council board, and we do a lot of legislative policy work with that. And so we elevate things that a 501c3 can't say, right? Because of how we get our money, you know, and how we get our contracts. And so sometimes I'll have to pass the note and say, hey, I need you to say this for me, right? Because I can't say it. But also as a woman of color leading an organization, we have to be mindful of even how we are portraying ourselves in community. And so we see ourselves aligning. I do a lot with other nonprofit leaders. We see ourselves aligning because there's strength in that. You know, there's the adage in the Bible, one can chase 1,000, two can put 10,000 to flight, and that's what we got to do right now. We think of like the local NAACPs and NCNWs and different coalitions that have brought, and it started with a small group, but the impact is infinite when you then have folks coming in and being able to underscore the things that you're trying to elevate in the community. And so I think collaborations are important. I think gone are the days where you do things in silos. We have to be together now more than ever because they want to see us divided. But when they see us unified and coming together and saying the same tenor of conversation, we have to demand that they listen to us. And so there's power in our voice, and we not only have to put power in your voice, but we have to also have action. So we have to go to Albany. We have to go to these places so that they can hear our voices and they represent us. So the power in the coalitions, the power in our voice, it's a powerful thing, and it's something that I have leaned into as a CEO. And at Roads to Success, I'm happy to say that we are very collaborative. We don't sit on the island by ourselves. We are together in the fight and in the struggle.
Fantastic. Yes, fantastic.
I'm so glad to be sitting next to you. I feel like you just took some of my notes, but I might reiterate what you just said, because I do think that there's something about folks wanting us to do things alone. They understand that when we are connected and we are working together, how powerful we are. I wrote down in my notes, and I'm really big on this in terms of like it takes a village to raise a child. There's an Ubuntu saying, I am because we are. And I think that we need to lean into some of our practices that have come from our ancestors and from the folks that have come before us that have gotten us here. And because if we stray, I think when we stray away from that, that's when we fail. But I really appreciate hearing you say these things, Sheila, because one, I consider you to be a partner in this work. And I think that as I think about Drive Change and what we're doing before the cuts, after cuts, during the cuts, partnerships, coalitions, collective work is necessary in what we've been doing. I think where we've been able to go as an organization has really been because of our connection with other people. I work with justice involved young people. We cannot do this work alone, right? So when we're trying to bring not only youth development, workforce development, to our young adults, we also have to take a healing centered approach to our work. We also have to think about what's necessary for a young person to be successful in their lives. And so that can mean financial literacy, that could be mental health services, that can be education, etc. And all of that is not in-house. So that means that it requires partnership. It means it requires building up. It's identifying who are the moms and the aunties and the grandmas of the world, so that the cousins, that's going, you know how when you were little and if you got home late, the person across the street said, well, she got home at 4 o'clock, not 3:30, because they was looking out for you. You knew you couldn't do, and that's really what it's about. It's about us looking out for our people. Drive Change, we're a part of a few different coalitions. The MORE Coalition, which is a coalition for hospitality, restaurant leaders, nonprofit folks that care about equity, and an inclusive restaurant and hospitality space. So we are part of that. We are also I sit on the board of the New York City Employment Training Coalition, which are over 200 folks in that space. And we are lifting up workforce. We are lifting up economic mobility, right? We have a conference December 9th and 10th. If you have not, hello. Get your ticket. If you want to be a sponsor, come see me. I'm also the co-chair of that conference. But the reason why I named this is because it is important for us to talk about economic mobility. It's important for us to talk about, there's an affordability crisis in our city, and we cannot we cannot talk about affordability if we don't talk about economics, if we don't talk about workforce. So that's why I lift this up in this space. But again, it is because we are connected to our people, right? Think about your own social capital. Who do you know in this room? I look around this room and I look around and there's so many beautiful people that I'm connected with, but how do we help build and lift the next one up? And at Drive Change, that is really important for us to be able to do this work. I was talking to a gentleman, he's running the Eagle Academy earlier today, and he said to me, individual success is nice. He said, but collective success is transformative.
Yep.
Hello, somebody. So like, if we do this together, just think about how powerful we can be, the things that we can move if we work together, right? It is not about, unfortunately, right? I wish that I didn't have a job to be able to do this work. Stop incarcerating Black and brown young men and women, and I wouldn't have a job. But with that being said, though, right, like, in order for us to be successful, in order for us to be impactful, we have to work with one another. So I'm gonna reach out to Youth Represents for my legal representation. I'm gonna work with New York Affirmative for mental health services to provide therapy for my young people. I'm gonna talk to Fifth Avenue Committee or other folks that provide financial literacy services. So I just think that, again, there is so many reasons why tell me why we shouldn't. And then I won't work with folks. But if you can't, then I'll see you. I don't know when. We ain't gonna be friends. I'm gonna pass it to you, to Mitchell. Okay.
Thank you, Kalia.
All right, thank you.
Same question.
Yep.
Do you want me to repeat it?
No, I've got it.
Sorry.
Because it's so near and dear to my heart, and I think I can't say this enough. I think the only way we're going to get through this crisis, and that's what we're in, is through working together and through coalitions. I don't care how big any of your agencies are, whether you're big or small, one of our voices is not going to carry the day in this. We had this discussion on one of the coalitions I'm on. I've been really, blessed about my career being parts of lots of the coalition leaderships, but we just had this discussion recently. We had the chair of the Human Service Council was here. We had the chair of another one in Unity Alliance was here before. Is with this administration in Washington, we see it, how vindictive they are. There's a nail sticks up, they bang it down, they obliterate it. You can't bang down 1,000 nails, and so, and we've said earlier, there are things that, I can't say a CEO of Samaritan Daytime Village, but as part of a coalition, you can. And there's just strength in numbers, that's the way it is. And I think, one of the things we have to do is also stick together. There's a whole thing, divide and conquer. We can't start fracturing off. We all do critical work, whether it's food, housing, addiction, healthcare, elder support, whatever it is. But we need to stick together. My own agency, we have our values, it's to dream, and it's what we want our clients to do and our staff, but the T is teamwork. I mean, I think that's what's all critical. And, in coalitions, I see there's the Just Pay little... Can I have that for a second? I use a prop. The Just Pay, for those of you that don't know, Human Service Council, along with many other coalitions, incredible lobbying effort to get, last year, this year was only 2.8 from the state, but we still got it for, staff and probably many of your agencies funded under state contract. We got 3% for 3 years in New York City for our health and human service workers. This is proof that it works. Couldn't have happened, even, just one coalition human service council, not big enough. And I think one of the other things, and what's great about this conference and people in this room is, it's often just, it's New York City. It's got to be a statewide coalition for state issues, because it's too often, oh, that's New York City issues, or that's, rural New York, or, Western New York, whatever. Is we are really all serving the same people, they're just in different locations, and we've just got to come together as a single voice on the state. It's just so much more powerful. Make those alliances. I don't know some of the elected officials upstate. Many of you do. It's critical to get theirs going across the aisle. That's really, really powerful. And so, I guess kind of what I'm saying is as big a tent as possible. It includes our staff. The Just Pay, we send a lot of staff out. People, we want more pay, but you got to show up. Does it put a little stress on the agency to have so many staff go? It's critical. Get clients to go. They're the ones that we're all doing this for, and that nobody's more powerful at explaining to the people in power what that means. Some of our boards, we've talked also about stretching out to the business community. Some of our board members, or locally or stuff, they've got contacts. It was said earlier, in this room, there's like contacts we don't know about. We've got to really do that, because we're up against huge forces. I keep calling it a tsunami. As I said, the tsunami is coming. And we've got to really prepare. And the only way is by sticking together. And to me, it's coalitions, coalitions, coalitions.
Thank you. Yes.
Fund these coalitions. Fund them.
So my next question is for Mark, Erin, and Beatrice. Who are the key individuals, partners, and influencers we need to engage in this healthcare fight?
I'll start. Sure. I didn't know the order that you called, but
You see, you get like
I know. I'm confused. I'm like listening to the full question. First and foremost, as someone again who works with folks who elected officials, and I want to preface, I am an elected official in Rochester, New York, and I get to work with other electeds, right, at different tables. The mayor has a resilience table that we created in response to what we can do as a city to what's happening at the federal that will impact all of us and our constituents. But I want to point out that elected officials don't look at homeless people or people sometimes even in shelters as constituents. And they're your constituent. They're just on house or going through a small crisis right now, right? So first and foremost, we have to push for elected officials to see all people as part of the conversation and opening that table for them to be there. And you're talking about who needs to be there. Everyone needs to be there. Everyone from the homeless individual who is struggling on the street and struggling to navigate these systems to even get help, first and foremost, because these are the systems that they're writing policy and passing laws on that directly impact them. Our parents need to be there, our youth need to be there, our grandparents need to be there, elderly people. They're being impacted by these systems. They're being impacted, and some of them don't even know what's coming down the pipeline with Medicaid potentially being cut. And I brought this up last night. I'm like, there's so many seniors who are about to hit 65 and enter into Medicare and do not realize that long-term health care, long-term care, LTC, is not covered by Medicare. It is only covered by Medicaid. And so, like, that conversation, we have to remove this notion that Medicaid is this, like, enclosed population in a bubble, and it's not going to impact any of us. It is 100% going to impact all of us. It is going to impact our health insurance premiums. Two big things that's happening right now in New York State with even the thoughts of this budget passing is that United Healthcare and Excelis are pulling out of the market for Medicare. So, for people who use United Health, they get those over-the-counter cards, which many people depend on, that extra $150, right, $200 to do things with. That's going to be gone starting in February. So notices are going out right now to all of those individuals, and there's a lot of confusion around that. So everybody needs to be at the table, because none of these topics we've created silos around these topics. We created a silo around education, housing, healthcare, and I'm like, they're all interconnected, and for an individual This is our daily, day-to-day life. There is no separation of these systems. They are for us, and I do think we have to push on the notion that they are individual systems. They are not. They are systems that integrate, and we need to do a better job of that integration and crossing over in those sectors, because again, the silos are not just within the subject matter, right? It's not just all the healthcare professionals in their own silos. We're in silos in education from universal pre-K to colleges. So getting everybody on the same page, everybody needs to be at the table. Sorry, it took too long. I was watching you what minute.
I know that's right. You're hot.
Okay. Who to bring to the table, I think, is the question. Right?
Yes. Influencers, partners.
About 20 years ago, the Kellogg Foundation funded a study that they looked at what makes successful coalitions. And they identified 6 characteristics of those coalitions. I want to run through them quickly because they relate to who are the people that you need to bring to the table. So one thing they do is they have policy expertise. Understand that. The second thing they have is people who have political expertise. Not everybody does all of these things, but as long as the functions are happening. The third thing they do is they bring diverse stakeholders together, what we oftentimes refer to as strange bedfellows. You know, I've been an advocate all my during my advocacy career over the last 30 plus years or so for Medicare for All style universal health care program. Now if and when that comes to fruition, and I'd like to say when it comes to fruition, there will be certain stakeholders that will be cut out of that system. But in the meantime, I can and should and need to work with some of those stakeholders right now in the current context of my work. So bringing a diverse array of stakeholders together, that's the third thing. The fourth thing they have is they have members. So what I talk about, that third thing of the broad stakeholders, you build out. But the other thing you need is groups at your table who build down to the grassroots, everyday people, to help them understand the issue and come forward and play a role and mobilize. So you build down and you build out. The fifth thing they do is they have effective communication strategies. They do things like they talk to the local media, they develop relationships with reporters and editors and editorial boards. They, now in our new era, the last decade or so, they have expertise in using social media. And now, of course, we have the whole influencer phenomenon that's surfaced in the last sort of 5 years or so. So you need to be, there are some folks that need to be handling that. Traditional media, absolutely, you know, press releases and so forth, but you don't put all your eggs in that basket. New media is very important. And the last thing they do is they have sustainability. One of the things I always tell people is, under a very rare circumstance, unless everybody agrees at the outset on something like it's mom and apple pie, you have to play the long game here. You move the ball down the field in plays, and it takes a while, and you get victories, and then you have some setbacks because people come to attack your victory and try to take that back, which is what we're in the middle of right now. So you play the long game. You must sustain these coalitions during the time when it may not be the hot, sexy issue. It's, you know, you're toiling in the vineyards. You're building your infrastructure and getting yourself ready so that when a moment of opportunity, what we call a window of opportunity, opens, you are ready to roll and take full advantage of that situation. So sustainability is really important. And one key aspect of sustainability, especially for nonprofits, is you must fund them when it's not a sexy time.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
You have to do it all the way along. You can't just give them a 3-year grant and say, stand up this program, and then you're on your own and expect that it's going to continue. The right wing has played this long game and funding for a half a century. They started this moment we're in now with this reaching fruition for them. They started that in the early 1970s. So they understand this game and how it's played and sustainability and moving it step by step by step. So I just wanted to kind of lay those out. So in terms of who you bring to the table, different people who have experience, expertise, connections in any one of those 6 areas, you bring them together, and I found this in my own work, it really does make a huge difference in terms of your efficacy and success.
Thank you, Mark. Erin?
Absolutely. So we've heard so much, and a plus on all of it. But a couple items that I just want to sort of tease out and elevate a little bit. We talked a little bit about, the coalition building, and I think what's important there, right, is the idea that, cross-sectional organizing is so important. And not just cross-sectional, but intergenerational organizing is also very important. Because like my colleagues have said, these issues are not just healthcare or education or job development. They are all tied to one another. And so that organizing is so crucial. And to Mark's point about, who we're bringing together, I want to elevate and lift up directly impacted folks to be part of the conversation and part of the solution. And for people in decision-making power, do not take advantage of that. When somebody comes and shares their experience and then you do something entirely different, just don't invite them.
Right.
Just don't invite them because you have wasted their time. You have wasted their time. And in addition to having the policy expert, the directly impacted individual, we have to do better at political education and the movable middle, right? We have to talk about people who are not involved with people who are experiencing homelessness to help them understand what their neighbor is experiencing. Because they're just like, why isn't this person off the street? There's an apartment for him right there. It's a lot more complicated than that. And really doing that education, not just to folks in power, but to expand the coalition of who is speaking to those folks in power. To be able to say, we're not just organizing people who are on Medicaid, but we're organizing people who are on commercial health insurance because you're impacted too. So I think that's really important. And a lot of times, organizing is hard work. I love that the work is happening outside of the Hill and in congressional districts, for example. But let's remember that organizing has to happen not just in the congressional districts, but in our state assembly and senate districts and our council districts. And that takes work, right? And it takes time, which not everybody has. And so the opportunity to be able to provide individuals with talking points, with a letter that they can make some slight edits to send to their representatives, all very important stuff. But I will also say, if we've learned one thing in New York City from our recent election, is that people power will always win.
That's right.
And this is what we're talking about, the coalitions that we're bringing together. But we have an uphill battle with respect to special interests who have, bought individuals in power. But we also have something where, our people power and doing this work is important, so that way we cannot be ignored, right? And if we continue to bring folks to the table to do the political education, we're going to have the people at the tables that they cannot ignore. And I think that that's critically important. And there's one other thing I was going to say. I'm sure it'll come back around.
Thank you, Erin.
Waste any time.
So my last question is
I'm so sorry. Before you go to this question, I know you're the moderator, but a few things have come up to me that I think is really important that we just kind of hone in on. One, you said stay ready, so we ain't got to get ready. I just want to make sure we lift that up. Yes. And then you talked a little bit, Sheila, about the organizing behind the scenes, that sometimes people won't be able to hear from you, right? But you can find the person that can say the thing. So if you know that Maybe it's because of your skin tone. Maybe it's because of your gender. Maybe it's because of whatever the case might be. That you identify who can the message be heard from, and they're saying the message. So like I'm talking to Aaron, we on the same page. They don't know we on the same page, and Aaron is going in the room and shouting from the rooftops. And now some movement is being made. There's nothing wrong. I mean, granted, we're gonna acknowledge the fact that they don't want to hear from me, but like Aaron and I care about one thing. So we're gonna take our egos out and we're gonna figure out a way to organize. And then this piece of, I live in a mixed building, and I had got my apartment through the lottery. And how individuals talk about other folks have gotten through the lottery or Section 8 or might be, and they look at me, they don't know what I do, you know, and I'm just like, no, everybody has the right to live in a place that's nice and that is clean and that etc. No matter of where you're like whatever your pedigree or your job. So stop looking down at individuals. So to your point of that middle, that what did you say, movable middle is also really important, because we get too big for our bridges. Oh my God, I go to the vineyard. Blah, blah, blah. No, we all are important. I should be able to live in a nice apartment and have a pool and live comfortably. So I just wanted to lift those things up because they stood out for me, and I know that you're the moderator, so I'm gonna go like this. And I'm gonna come back.
The moderator is gonna kill us.
I know, please don't hurt me, please. Hammer, don't hurt him,
I'm
please.
gonna pause that. We can talk after because we're not here in the essence of time. Thank you.
Some other groups.
Okay, this is why I have to move it along. Thank you, everyone. So my last, yes, you have to stick. Good point. Let it all begin here. So my last question is for the entire panelists, and your response should be 5 minutes or less, please. And my question is, what can everyone in this room collectively do to help join the fight? And I'm going to start with Mark, followed by Beatrice, Kalia, Sheila, Erin, and then Joe. 5 minutes or less.
This is something I didn't mention, but it was triggered by some remarks from the other folks. Connect the dots. Help everyday people understand how this relates to that, relates to this, relates to that, whatever. I've been in some sessions today where there have been conversations about the big ugly bill. And it's been talked about as if it's just sort of magically fell out of the sky. It did not magically fall out of the sky. It was planned and done intentionally. And it was done, all these huge cuts to healthcare and other programs were done to partially pay for a $5 trillion tax cut bill that benefits primarily big corporations, special interests, and the ultra wealthy. So when you say, oh, your ACA premium is going up, or they're taking away your Medicaid, or they're going to give you all this blizzard of paperwork that you now have to fill out twice a year. That is happening in order to help pay for that tax cut bill. So people, connect the dots. Second thing is, make the issue real for people. What does that issue mean for you, your family, and your community? Take it out of the highfalutin policy stuff. What does it mean on the ground?
Make it plain.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And in everyday language and concepts. Yeah. No jargon, no acronyms, that somebody who knows nothing about the issue can understand. A third thing is, tell your story. Every one of us has a healthcare story. Tell it. Tell it to the elected officials. Tell it to your local media. And most important, tell it to each other. So that everyone realizes, hey, I'm not alone. I'm just, I got my start in the AIDS activist movement of the early 1990s. And we were not just telling our stories, we were living the stories, trying to keep people alive at that point. So I think those are sort of three things that I would mention about how people can get involved.
Thank you, Mark.
I would say I want to uplift that too, and going back to the education piece of people are just truly uninformed about how systems actually work, how they intersect, and how it's going to impact them. And that's why, again, they look at this bill as like Medicaid. I don't have Medicaid. I don't got to worry about it. I do. I have 4 grandchildren. I talked about this yesterday. They're all on the spectrum. IEPs and services like speech and occupational therapy is paid for through Medicaid, through schools. And so it's already underfunded as it is. All public services are underfunded. And I like to say, I personally believe one of the biggest cons America has done is capitalism. And it's the notion that we have to work, and then you're taking taxes from me for entitlement benefits that I'm entitled to, but you're making me go through all these hoops, and then you're going to tell me I'm not entitled to them. And we shouldn't be fighting for the benefits that we're paying for. Our taxes have paid for people to have Medicaid and Medicare and education and access to even social services. But yet we're fighting. We have to fight sort of each other at times, because I understand that you as a DHS worker, you need this job too. Right? But now I have to fight you so that my person can get this benefit that their families worked for, right? We think that because I'm on the street now, it does not mean that my parents, my children sometimes, my aunts and uncles, all are people who have worked. So I might be effed up right now on the street, but the people around me have worked for these entitlement benefits for my benefit as well. So I do think it is about education, but I really want to be really radical and start educating people on how we get the hell out of capitalism, period. But we're not there yet as a society. But that's really what it's going to have to boil down to. But what I will say, for anyone, I personally believe anyone can jump into this fight, no matter how educated you are on this subject. And you can do it by even following places like SEU 1199. They do a lot in upstate when there's an action alert. I signed up the organization for their action alerts, because if they're doing something at Jordan Health that's talking about needing lived experience people with Medicaid, my agency is picking people up off the street. Let's go. We got to go up here and go to this thing. So signing up for action alerts and knowing who are the organizers and the agencies that are bringing people together, and join them. Even if you're not local to them, join them, join their alerts, and start there. Because once you're in with SEU 1199, they're going to make sure you are educated on these issues. They're going to create opportunities and those spaces, and I'm sure for your organization as well. And that's where I'll leave it at. Oh, I was going to
listen. I knew I messed with you when I said, you know what? We go hard. We gonna be friends. A couple of things. I tell your story, right? I think that like when I couldn't go to the doctor and it cost me a lot of money, I said, if I can't go to the doctor, if I'm the executive director, it's a problem. Hello. So I was like, we need better health insurance, and so that means my budget is gonna go up. But I'm gonna be outside in these streets, making sure I raise some money so that my people, my team can have, I'm sorry?
I said, have all the things.
Yeah, all the things. And I will do that. And then, and because it is necessary, and that is my job, right? Additionally, I think it's important for us to remember how we got here. People invested in us. There were coalitions that were moving before us. So lift the next one up. Right, so if we don't, to our point earlier, we shouldn't be operating in silos. So be intentional about lifting the next one up. Be intentional about talking about what your people are doing. Oftentimes, when I'm prospecting and I'm in calls with people, I am talking about other organizations that are doing the work. Right, like I Drive Change is not doing it all by ourselves, and we cannot. And I recognize the beauty and the glow of all of my other colleagues that are out there, and I am going to say something about it in the spaces, in the rooms that they're not in. And then oh my goodness, see individuals as human beings. Remove the stigma. To your point, right? Like, just because I don't have a home, right, does not mean I don't matter, right? Just because someone is just as involved doesn't mean they don't matter, right? How do they get there? How did the system set them up in a place where they didn't even have a first chance to begin with? Right? And now it want to be like them versus us. No, these are human beings that require some care, some love, some dignity, respect, chances, if you will. So putting the human person at the center and remembering that we were all there. And quite frankly, we would not be here right? Hello, if we were not invested in and someone didn't see something in us. So I think don't operate in silos. Be intentional about lifting people up, seeing the human being in individuals, and then to your point, sharing your story.
Thank you, Kalia.
So they have said a lot, and I underscore and highlight everything that they are saying. I think I want to lift up two things, right? So we talked about the power of the coalition and being able to be involved in coalitions, but you also need a champion behind the scene too, right? And so a lot with coalitions is you have to position the people. And so the call to action is if you are in a place and space where then you could be the champion, but somebody can carry the message, and then you piggyback it and you alley-oop to the court, that's how we have to land it, right? It takes,
Yeah.
you have to align yourself with multiple facets of people, right? And I like to say at Road to Success, our mission is to empower and inspire young people to take control of their futures, right? We want them to be able to break cycles of poverty, cycles of abuse, neglect, right? And they can't do that without the education. So on our end, as a CEO, I have to be informed on all angles and all streets. And just like Clea mentioned, if something is not necessarily Road to Success angled, but I'm in a room and I'm like, oh, you need to go speak to Clea Moon because at Drive Change, this is what they do, right? And so the lifting as we climb is real. It's also making sure that I'm elevating the name, right? It's power in the name. And so when you're thinking about the coalition, thinking about what you name the coalition, right? Because that's how people will gravitate to your mission. And the last thing I'm going to say in terms of like a call to action and things that we can do is you have to join the coalitions that sometimes has a fee, right? Membership has its privileges. And sometimes, coalitions, they're not funded. And so they need membership dues to do the work. We have to have money to do some of the work that we do. That's the name of the game. And so don't stray away from coalitions that have fees, because those fees then help do some of the work. And so my call to action, if you're not on a coalition, join a movement, because there's so many things that we have to get accomplished in this day and age.
Thank you, Sheila.
I'll say something. We've talked a lot about what to do with other folks, but we can't do this work without taking care of ourselves also. The airplane, put your mask on first and then help your neighbor. Take care of yourself. These are difficult times. These are stressful times. I love what Clea said about raising other people up. One of the things that I have always done throughout my career is if someone's reached out to me wanting advice or just to sit down and chat, do it. One, you're going to help somebody in their journey, but also you're going to learn from them and their experience, and it keeps you, at least for me, in touch with the younger generation and what their experience is. Start small. You can do something small in your community to be involved, a local church, a local food bank. There's a lot of ways to get involved and figure out sort of how to use your voice and your talent and your skills. And then what I will say to everyone after that is, if you're working in education, pick up a book on healthcare right now. If you're in healthcare, pick up a book on climate justice. If you're doing climate justice, pick up a work about the carceral state. Learn something that is not your sort of basket, your bailiwick, and figure out, because they're all connected. They're all connected. And just like always +1 on, let's treat people as individuals, as humans, with dignity, with respect, with compassion and care, because this is all of ours to solve.
Yeah.
Thank you, Aaron.
In addition to seconding and tripling everything everybody said, I went first in the beginning, but I just want to say each of you has a lot of power, and use it. I think too often they say, oh, what's my voice? Like, vote. On Tuesday, I had to come down here, a lot of going on at work. It's like, oh, what's my vote going to mean? But I made sure that I went to vote. And one, I think also voting, to me, that's sort of a coalition too. So get people to vote. We haven't talked about that. But too often, what am I doing with, battling the state, getting, like, as I said, the COLA, which we had great success, or having some of the cuts not imposed. it works. So I want to leave you with two things. Hope. There is hope. These strategies work. But you got to work it to make it do it. And so you may say, "Oh, I'm crazy busy," but you carve out whether it's a minute, one day. That's all it is. But as I said, call somebody back. It's so important. Your executive team is saying, we got to make cuts. You ask them, have you joined a coalition? If not, Sheila said join. Oh, it costs money. Well, it's one of those things. If you're so busy making cuts and not being part of coalitions and fighting for is all near and dear to all of us, that's a losing battle. I don't have time to do it. No, you've got time to try to protect what you have. As a former treasurer of the Human Service Council, I agree. Fees are important. So many people say I can't afford that now. Well, that's money well spent. You get a little bit, of those fees. You get the benefit of the coalition, not just the day-to-day benefit, but things like the COLA for staff, things like having cuts. They're still making cuts. The numbers are so staggering, but not as steep. And so that is really the message I would leave. There's hope in coalitions, power in numbers. We all, care. That's why you're all in this room, in this hot room. Because you care ultimately about, the clients and the people we serve, our staff, the needs out there. One of the tragic things about now is these funding cuts are coming when, in my opinion, the needs are going to be greater than ever in terms of, homelessness, mental health issues, food insecurity, health, on and on and on. It's staggering. But, there is hope, and just we harness that power. I think we'll be unstoppable.
Thank you, Mitchell. I'm going to now take a few questions about 3 to 4, 1, 2, 3, All right, so the gentleman behind you had his hand up first, so would you stand up? Please.
I know this may not be a sexy topic right now, but when we were talking about how can others get involved, or what are the other things that can be done to help move things along, have any of the panelists thought about, and I'm 58, so I'm not in that era, but the use of AI, the use of technology, social media, influencers, to help move the message along? And that's not something that we all do as like grassroots advocates, but there is a space for those technologies and those areas that we may be missing out on if we don't include it in the messaging. Any thoughts to any of that, social media, influences, AI, and what role that plays in?
I'll say this, because I've been elected for 8 years now. I'm going to be finishing 2 years now and then moving on to city council. But when I first started, I do lives and I talk to people. I don't use jargon. People are not, again, educated about how systems work. And I'll tell you, even during COVID, I struggled because I still am raising a kid in the district at the time, and I remember going back and forth saying, if the district doesn't call closing schools, I'm pulling my daughter out, because at the time I was working in healthcare, seeing up close and personal some things. My sister was in Mount Sinai calling me, talking about how they were just dumping bodies in box trucks. And I was like, why is our government so slow to respond? And I remember that in Rochester, I ended up doing a live just saying, I'm pulling out my kids out of the school district, and I'm speaking as just a parent. Because I didn't want to get in trouble, right? As a commissioner, they come back and say, hey, you're encouraging people not to go to school. So I sometimes have to do that, right? I'm speaking as a commissioner, I'm speaking as Beatrice from the neighborhood. Here's my message. And I often encourage other electeds, but I have to tell you that we are our own media with social media. We don't need to wait for Channel 10 to give a 3-minute story. We can go live at events that we're at. We can educate others just by going live and posting videos and just by speaking to people. So I highly, highly recommend that we utilize social media, lives, and YouTube videos. AI have a lot of feelings around that, so I can't get into all of that now. I do use it, but I do try to use it accurately and sparingly because of the impacts of the health. But to your point, it is something we have to adapt to the change. It's going to be here, it's integrated. But yeah, we control our own media, and that includes all of you who have Facebook or might have X or Twitter or whatever it's called. You can control that. And so sharing that information as information gets tweeted out by an SEU 1199, retweet it, do a live. Even if you only know a little bit about the subject, say this is what I learned here and this is where you can go to get more. But we control our own media at this point.
5 seconds. Yes, because you need infographics. Yeah. Right now, young people are not reading newspapers and articles. And so anything that you can gravitate the eye you need, right? And so those tools are helpful if you use them appropriately with statistics. And so I think we should not be afraid of utilizing tools that make some of the work easier.
I think you have to do it.
I just wanna
Our
raise-
young people, sorry, please, Aaron, no, go.
I listen to so many people get bad information from hearing dumb shit, like from other people.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I'm in the business, and it's wrong information.
Yes.
And they're like,
Yes. Well, the
in
president.
that industry, that's what it's wrong. So spreading all that bad information amongst uneducated people, we have to be able to cut through that with real information, but in the ways that they're going to receive it.
100%.
I think that's absolutely right. And all I want to add on that is we also have to meet people where they're at and remembering the populations who are not getting their information from these ways, but also thinking about, you know, in-person town halls or, you know, social town or virtual town halls, having, you know, paper handouts for our on the house population. There's a lot of ways that we need to communicate, but we absolutely have to be on social media, using TikToks, all the things.
So I'll just, if I can just respond to that. I think the challenge I have is that a lot of people think that, oh, if we just go digital, we're okay.
Right.
You have to, it's an additive thing. It's not a replacement.
Yeah.
The mayoral election 2 days ago in New York City, if it showed nothing, it showed that good old grassroots organizing works.
Yeah.
You know, and it was augmented absolutely by digital.
But if you don't think that he used it, and he might have used some AI to help him with talking, you know,
Yeah.
to make this sound like me. Write an email to the. There's ways in which we can do them
for
both.
sure.
It's a
No,
both
I'm not-
and, right?
I'm not saying that, but
Yeah,
I just
for
want
sure.
to caution us to think that digital strategies and new media are the nirvana and going to solve everything.
Okay.
All right, we have another question.
I agree with you
There's
wholeheartedly.
5 hands that went up, and I want to make sure I give each
Okay.
person an opportunity to respond. But I do thank you for your enthusiasm. Yes, sir, you're on.
Hi, Rich Espinal with Highbridge Community Development Corporation. I want to just give a kind of self-promotional plug if I can. In terms of, again, we're a housing developer and property manager, and yet recognizing the needs of our residents, we have formed a health collaborative in Highbridge where we brought together the health insurance plans, the home caregivers, the medical providers, 1199, and others to come around the table to talk about how do we collectively work together to improve the lives of our community members and our residents, and so that's led to the creation of a year-round farmers market, a program for formerly homeless seniors, and a variety of initiatives that we continue to kind of push out. But as a kind of lifelong community organizer and advocate, one of my issues is that we keep talking about grassroots organizing, and the reality is that it's usually grass tops, and there's usually someone who's dying to be the lawnmower, right? And so how do we work collectively to promote the idea of working collaboratively, especially when our organizations, a lot of them are always struggling, and when we try to do everything right, but our boards don't always reflect the communities we serve, right? When we do our fundraising, it's usually like, oh, I'm gonna raise money for me and my organization because we know we got to pay our staff. But the coalition suffers because we're not working collectively, and we're all fighting for the same crumbs that are falling off the table instead of working together to get a seat at the table. So how do we address some of these kind of structural issues that exist with the way the funding works and the way nonprofits have to really compete with each other?
So we are part, the Legal Action Center, there's an ATI coalition, and one of the things that they do in terms of funding, right? So they will take a percentage of each organization's budget, and that money will go towards, maybe it's their lobbyist. And then their lobbyist will then go out and advocate for funding in the field. And then that money can kind of go down towards the organization. And then, again, sliding scale, like Fortune Society is not gonna, I'm not going to pay the same amount of money as Fortune Society. Our budget is completely different. And then when it's time for money to be dispersed, same thing. I mean, you have to have a call to action. You all have to be on the same page. But I think that if you have the right type of, I guess, the way that you're defining the work, you're kind of like non-negotiables for your coalition. And then that is a way in which you can all be on the same page. I mean, because again, if we are not, and as we, when I say we, there's the Brooklyn Arts and Cultural Collective. They're currently right now coming together, deciding what their ask is, etc. Folks have to be on the same page of what we're doing, right, and how we're doing it. And it's not just Drive Change or Prospect Park, etc. Everyone has their own thing that we're fighting for. But as a collective, what are we fighting for? Let's name it. And let's go after. So while I'm here at Somos, I might be talking about that. I might be in a room talking about NYC ETC, and then I'm in another room talking about Drive Change. What is our purpose? And then making sure that we don't forget the why in which we're here. And then also making sure that we have clear definitions of how we're going about doing it. And that could be that we have to, and versus having everybody putting it together $100, we need to have a clear system on how we're getting this work done.
Okay, I know some folks have their hands up, but I'm going to ask you to please ask the panelists in the hallway your questions because we have to move the program along in the essence of time. Yes, I apologize. So there's another segment.
Wait. Before y'all leave, can we grab the pledge sheet from you, please?
Yes. So one thing that I heard throughout this panelist is collaboration, forgo working in silos, getting your village, identifying different organizations. We cannot do this work alone, right? There's strength in numbers. So our greatest asset is working with our partners in preserving essential public services, like pooling our expertise, our resources. We can tackle challenges together. The key thing is that working in silo, we already see it does not work for us. It's counterproductive. So I hope that you have gained some new perspective on how to move forward in your communities. And I'm going to close this part out by thanking our esteemed panelists for all of your experiences collectively. I feel like this is such a sexy topic that we can continue talking about this for about 2 hours, but because of time constraints. So before you leave, I'm going to call my colleague, Asim Johnson. We have our next call to action that he's going to briefly run us through. Okay, Asim? Thank you.
All right, thanks, Marcel. Yes, as Marcel said, my name is Asim Johnson. I'm the Upstate Lead Healthcare Advocate for the Healthcare Education Project. And just briefly, we've been talking a lot about the impact code that you could go to, and you could type in your salary as well as your family size, and it'll be able to help you to understand what your premium increase would be, as well as those who receive Medicaid, what the new cost would be for Medicaid with the co-pays now in place. And just one last thing to the point of the call to action. We heard from the panelists, and what I heard was an overarching theme of unity, right? And for us to truly be unified, it starts with the first 3 letters, right? You and I, right? So we're asking everyone to please join us in this fight. Everyone should have received also our pledge. If you could please fill this out. If you need a pen, I got some up here. And if you could check off the box in the way that you would like to support us. That could be taking trips with us to Albany, telling your story, reaching out to others in your community and helping us to build out our base. All right, so once again, thank you all so much. And actually, before I stop, I wanted to please help me give a round of applause to Ramika for her vision of bringing us all together.
For our panelists as well.
Yeah. I'll quickly say we're having a panel tomorrow at 10:30 on this is more New York City focused, but certainly it relates to this conversation about partnerships and sort of responding to HR1 and thinking about it. So my colleague here has some flyers if anyone's interested. But thank you for your time. This has been amazing.
Yes, thank you. Panel, can we just